Good noon, all of you. I welcome you to this session, MAHCET Critical Reasoning. So, critical reasoning can form an important part of your MAHCET exam, right? And that is why it's important that we know the basic concepts behind critical reasoning so that we can attempt different types of questions, right? There can be questions such as what can you infer from this argument? What is the assumption that has been made in this argument? How can you strengthen this argument? How can you weaken this argument? So there are multiple question types that we should know how to approach. That is what we are going to learn today, so that if, let's say, 2 3 questions or 4 to 5 questions from critical reasoning come in our VRC section, we are able to attempt them very comfortably, smoothly. That's the idea behind today's session: is critical reasoning, target critical reasoning. All right. So give me a hi, drop a hi so that I know you are here, and then we can begin. Yes. All right. So we are going to go topic by topic today. So I told you that there are 4 basic question types here: inference, assumptions, strengthening, weakening, right? So we'll go topic by topic, right? And we'll look at some examples of each topic, of course, right? Let's begin. So, first of all, before I venture into, inference, conclusion, all these terms, you first tell me, hello Ayush, tell me what is an argument? Yes, I mentioned the word argument right now when I was talking to you about the various question types. So, what is an argument? Hello Saurabh, hello Anuja, good afternoon SG. Hello Saurabh, hello Shreyash. Yes, tell me what is an argument in your opinion? Good afternoon, Neerad. So, 2 people fighting with each other, is it? Hello, sweetie. 2 people fighting with each other, okay. It's a kind of statement, okay. What kind of statement is it? Good afternoon, Farad. It's nothing but debate, okay. So, if let's say there is just one person, right, there are no 2 persons to debate, then one person alone cannot make an argument. Can I say that? Hello, Kaveri. Right. So, let's see. Difference in perspective. Uh, there doesn't have to be a difference actually. It is just a perspective, right? So let's see what an argument is. Normally, when I use the word argument, students understand that I'm talking about a fight, a debate, but no. An argument is simply your viewpoint backed by reasons. Okay, if I have to define it in clear logical terms, right, terms that are used in the world of logic, I would say that an argument is a set of interconnected statements, okay, containing a conclusion derived on the basis of one or more premises. To simplify it for you, it is basically a set of statements. Just a second, my pen tab, let me just, yeah. So, all right, yes. So, it is a set of interconnected statements. That's what is given to us here, right? Okay. So now that means there are going to be multiple statements when I look at an argument, right? So let's say I tell you that, I love biryani because let's say it has ample amount of vegetables. It has ample vegetables. I like caramelized onion that it uses, right? So now this is my viewpoint. I love biryani. That is my viewpoint. And then I give you some reasons to support this viewpoint of mine. So collectively, this is my argument. So an argument is nothing but your viewpoint backed by reasons. Okay. So it's a set of interconnected statements containing a conclusion. I love biryani, derived on the basis of one or more premises. Premises are nothing but your reasons. Your reasons are called premises. Okay, so that is what an argument is. I hope this is clear to everybody. Yes? Shubham, Varun, Rishikesh, clear to everybody, I hope. Okay. So now that it is clear to you, let's take an example. If I say Bhumi secured 98% marks in class 12, she can be called intelligent. Okay. So here you tell me, fine, this is an argument, but here what is the conclusion? What is the premise? Yes. What is the conclusion? What is the premise? Tell me. In this example, what is the conclusion? What is the premise? So I can give you one premise, I can give you a number of premises, right? That is dependent on the arguer, the person who is arguing, right? So here, Bhumi secured 98% marks in class 12. That is the basis. That is the basis of the author's concluding that she can be called intelligent. So she can be called intelligent is the conclusion here, and Bhumi secured 98% marks in class 12 is the premise here. Right? Absolutely correct, SG. Okay, so let's look at it. Look at the parts of an argument, right? So far I told you that an argument is a set of interconnected statements containing a conclusion derived on the basis of one or more premises. So let's look at the structure of an argument as if it were a house, right? As if it were the structure of a house. So here, the very foundation of this house, the very basis of this house, see, the very basis of an argument is your reason, the reason that you extend behind it. That's the foundation of your argument. So those are called the premises, and that's why we have placed them in the foundation. Then the conclusion forms the roof, because that is what we are trying to support, isn't it? We are trying to support our conclusion. Then what are these? Let's find out what these are. So she can be called intelligent is the conclusion. Okay. Then Bhumi secured 98% marks in class 12 is the premise. Right. But some of you must have thought this earlier also. See, when I gave you this example, some of you must have thought, oh, come on, just from marks we are judging that she is intelligent. Yes, this must have come to some people's mind, some students' mind. And it's very fair because the premise talks about marks while the conclusion talks about intelligence. There seems to be a gap there, right? So there is something that this arguer, this person has not stated, but essentially believes in, so as to be able to arrive at this conclusion, right? So when we communicate in our everyday lives, we don't state each and everything very explicitly, right? So there are certain things that we explicitly state as our reasons, those are our premises. Now, those things that we think are pretty obvious, okay, that we take for granted, but those that are essential for arriving at the conclusion, they are called the arguers, the speakers' assumptions. So here, there seems to be a gap between marks and intelligence. Yes, the premise is about marks, the conclusion is about intelligence. So that means that the arguer, the speaker, necessarily believes that marks are somehow related to intelligence. Marks are positively correlated to intelligence. That is something that the arguer believes in. So it's an essential belief which is necessary for the conclusion to hold true. These statements, such statements which are hidden but which are necessary for the conclusion to hold true, are called your assumptions. In a way, they are your hidden premises only. You can call them hidden premises, right? So this is what these pillars are. These pillars are invisible pillars of your house. These pillars are not visible, no, in our houses, right? But these pillars, they also help in supporting the conclusion. Alone, the foundation can't do it. So here, the belief of the speaker, something that has not been explicitly stated, is that securing 98% marks in class 12 is a sign of intelligence. That is how the author is able to relate first with third, premise with the conclusion, right? It could have been studious instead of intelligence. See, I can't do that, Rishikesh, because the conclusion is about intelligence. So I can't fill the gap by using something about studious. right? If the conclusion is about intelligence, that means the gap is between marks and intelligence. So to fill the gap, you have to say something that talks about, that relates the two, that relates marks with intelligence. Okay. So Ayush, yes, what you are doing is currently you are trying to attack the conclusion. I am not doing that right now. I am not trying to attack the conclusion right now. I am just trying to take you inside the mind of the arguer. Arguer ने क्या सोचा होगा? What the arguer must have thought before making his or her argument. That's what we are trying to gauge right now, right? So there are certain things that the arguer explicitly communicated to you, the premise and the conclusion, but there are a lot of essential things that he thought of before making this argument, which are necessary for the argument to hold true, and that is what we are discussing right now, the assumptions of the arguer. We will attack this argument, don't worry, we'll attack it a little later. Okay, so I hope this is clear to you. To understand the parts of an argument is important. Now we'll first attempt our inference questions, right? That means some premises will be given to us, P1, P2, P3, let's say. Some premises will be given to us and we will be asked to infer something from them. We will be asked to infer or conclude something from them. Okay, what we can derive. Now, how to do this entire thing? Follow these steps. That's it. This is a general instruction. See, whenever you are given an argument like this, okay, always read this question stem first. Which of the following inference can be drawn from the sentence given above? Why read this question stem? Because it helps you to understand whether it's an inference question, an assumption question, etc. So that you proceed accordingly. Okay, so read the question stem first. Now, in an inference question, a set of premises will be given to you. In logic, in the world of logic, the term for it is stimulus. So here is your stimulus. This is your stimulus. This is your stem. And of course, the rest are your options. Mark the option that is true on the basis of the stimulus. So mark that option that is true on the basis of the stimulus, because that is the one that can be inferred. If it lies in the maybe region, the iffy region, अच्छा हो भी सकता है, नहीं भी हो सकता है, then it is not the answer. Then it is not a valid inference. Remember that. Eliminate, because the ideal answer choice may not be present. Okay, so sometimes you might feel that even this, this is the answer because the other options are clearly wrong. But even this, I could have written this better. I could have phrased it in better terms. That's quite possible. You might feel that. So the ideal answer choice may not be given to you at all. So that's why it's important to eliminate, because now that you are sure that A, B, C are definitely not the answers, then what is left is D. And yes, D looks like it can be the answer. So I'll have to make do with D. Right? So in some circumstances, this can be the case. Okay. Now, didn't mean that I was saying if it would have been studious, then it could have supported the argument. Okay, we'll talk about supporting the arguments in a while. Let's not mix things, right? Let's just focus on inference right now, then assumptions, then we'll come to strengthening and weakening the argument. Strengthening is supporting, weakening is attacking, right? Okay. Now, coming to don't fall into traps. Yes, what can be the traps in an inference question for you? Okay, so sometimes whatever option is given to us, okay, the option given to us could be a little too broad when compared with the statement. So if my statement talks about India, then my conclusion should ideally also talk about India. It can't go and talk about the entire world, right? So if it does, if it makes a very general statement about the world, then it is broadening what is given in the statement, which may not be the correct way to go about it, right? So such options that are too broad, that are not at all discussed in the statement, that don't completely capture, okay, don't comprehensively capture what all can be inferred, or which are extreme. So if my statements say that poverty is one of the problems in India, whereas my conclusion projects it as the biggest problem in India, that is an extreme option. This is nothing new that I'm telling you. In your RC passages, you already follow these things, because in RC passages also you have inference questions, right? So you already are aware of these concepts. I'm just making you recall these. And this insidious option, this dangerous option, sometimes the examiner will write something in the option that is true, something that is true, but let's say it is a repetition of the premise itself. मैंने premise को ही repeat कर दिया नीचे, right? Then it is not a conclusion. Repetition of the premise doesn't count as a conclusion or an inference. Okay, so true but not addressing the question. Now it's not addressing the question. The question is asking for an inference, a conclusion, not the premise itself. So that is why this is also not going to be our answer. Unfortunately, sometimes there have been questions in your exam wherein, let's say, 3 of the options were absolutely wrong and there was one option that repeated the premise. That has happened. So in that case, you have no choice but to mark the repetition as the answer. But logically speaking, that's not correct. Okay. So I hope things are clear. So far, so good. And we can proceed. Okay. Coming to our first question then, we have to keep in mind that we'll mark something that is true on the basis of the statements that we have read. Okay. So here's your statement. The GDP growth, as expected, has hit a rough patch following the COVID-19 lockdowns and strict social distancing measures. Which of the following inferences can be drawn from the state sentence given above? Yes. Easy question. Let's see what you say. Fastest fingers first. Okay. All right. Okay. What is it? What does it mean to put the economy through the ringer? The pandemic is likely to put the economy through the ringer. So it is likely to put the economy in a lot of trouble. That is what it means to put something through the ringer. The ringer is that machine through which the sugar cane passes for its juice to be created, for its juice to be derived out of it, right? So here the pandemic is likely to put the economy through the ringer. It makes a future prediction, whereas no such talk of the future has happened in my stimulus, in my statement. And because no such discussion has happened, D is making, again, D is going a little beyond the statement. So it's not the answer. Okay, now let's look at B and E. So most of you said B. Let's have a look at E. The GDP would grow on expected lines if it were not for the lockdowns and social distancing. That means that if the lockdown and the social distancing did not happen, then the GDP would grow as expected. Right? Can we conclude this? So basically, the information that is given to us is about COVID-19 lockdowns and social distancing measures. We haven't been given any other information. So how can I predict that if it were not for these, we would have definitely grown? Our GDP would have definitely grown. Maybe some other hurdle could have come then. So I cannot be sure that the GDP would grow on expected lines if it were not for the lockdowns and social distancing. Okay. I hope this is clear that Y is not the answer. You are correct. B is definitely the answer because it is something that is definitely true based on what we have just read. Okay, so this was a question meant to cement your concept of what an inference is. Hope this is clear to everybody and good. Everybody, as most of you have given the correct answer. Now let's have a look at the second question. The British Prime Minister, Mr. Boris Johnson, referred to India's long-standing relationship with Russia, expressing understanding of India's position, in stark contrast to the visit of his foreign minister 2 weeks ago. Which of the following inference can be drawn from the sentence given above? Yes. Let's see what you say. 5 options, no negative marking. Remember. Okay. All right. Critical reasoning, Prathamesh, is usually a part of your VARC section itself. Sometimes it can also be asked in the logical reasoning section. Okay, usually a part of your VARC section. Okay, A, all right. C also, okay. Others. G, okay. Which option is that? D, okay, I've got one D also. So, remember the broad, alien, incomplete, extreme, something that I told you, something that I talked to you about? Isn't D extreme? Johnson is lying about understanding India's position on Russia. Can I say this? Can I be sure of this that he is lying? Yes, that's a very extreme allegation to make because, see, I'm just giving you now multiple possibilities. There's a possibility that, let's say, Johnson is not well versed with what the foreign minister said, right? So I can't. So there's probably a genuine confusion. I can't say that he's lying about understanding India's position on Russia. Extreme. Okay. The foreign policy of Britain does not seem to be clear. A very broad option. Just just because of Britain's prime minister and Britain's foreign minister's stance on India's relationship with Russia. Just from this, I cannot infer about their foreign policy, which contains a lot of other countries, right? A lot of other things. So too broad to be the answer. Okay. Then this is an interesting one. Yes, students narrow down to A and C usually. Now, liking, dislike, see again, like, dislike, this is an extreme thing. Okay, the foreign minister of Britain does not like India. We don't know about his likes and preferences just from, and we can't gauge it just from this one statement. Between A and C, it took 2 weeks for Britain to understand and analyze India's position and then support it. See, we are not sure of whether Britain did understand it and analyze it in these 2 weeks. We just know two things that Boris Johnson, he said that he understands, he understands India's position, which is in contrast with the visit of his foreign minister 2 weeks ago. That means his foreign minister must have said something that was not very positive, right? That was not understanding India's position. So that is something that I can definitely say. Whether they analyzed it in these 2 weeks, whether they understood it in these 2 weeks, I am not sure of it. Maybe, yes, this is the kind of option that I was talking about. Maybe, iffy. But this was definitely the case because we are saying that this is in stark contrast, right? So this is how you eliminate options. A is the answer. Okay. All right, D is extreme, you are correct. B, yes, extreme, correct. Then the level of questions that we're practicing here. See, this is MAHCET usually gives you relatively easy critical reasoning questions. Okay, so the questions that I have seen in your previous year memory-based papers, they have been relatively easy. Our aim today is to keep it easy only because we are trying to build the concept in today's class. We'll have one more critical reasoning session. There we'll practice relatively more advanced advanced questions. Okay, because first you should understand it, then only you'll be able to, let's say, attempt the difficult ones, right? Okay, so the answer here is option A. I hope this is clear to everybody, and I hope the concept of inference is now clear to you, right? How to infer something on the basis of what all is given to you. how to eliminate various options, broad, alien, incomplete, extreme, and true but not addressing the question. And what kind of an answer would be our correct answer. Okay. Always eliminate, remember. And once you learn this well, no, it will make it easy for you to attempt your RC passages also, because there also you have inference questions. Okay, now coming to our next question type, which is assumption. Assumption of the arguer. Okay. Weightage. So Rajan, Tejas, I don't think they should ask you more than 5 to 6 critical reasoning questions. Okay. Why? Because see, that is the they, if let's say they give space to parajumbles also and critical reasoning as well, then they need to take care of the fact that they have grammar also, vocabulary also, and RC passages also. So I don't think that they'll ask you, let's say, more than 5 to 6 questions on critical reasoning. Right? In the past also, this is the number that I have seen. Okay. Now, coming to our next question type, which is assumption. So, I've already explained to you what assumption is. The belief of the arguer. Okay, something. It's a necessary hidden premise. Yes, think of the assumption as a necessary hidden premise, without which the conclusion cannot hold true. So, it is a statement that the arguer has supposed or taken for granted while making the argument. उसने क्योंकि for granted ले ली तभी उसने explicitly नहीं बताया, right? The arguer has taken it for granted. And always step into the shoes of the arguer. So why am I stating this? Because what was happening earlier? We were trying to attack the argument. We were thinking, no, this is wrong. Intelligence cannot be concluded. So here we are looking from our perspective, and that's why we are attacking the argument. First, step into the shoes of the arguer. Then think, what is it that the arguer must have taken for granted but is necessary for arriving at the conclusion? Okay. Now, what's an important check? Let's say there were 5 options. This is an assumption question. Now, the first thing that you should see is which all options are related to the argument. This is, I think, a very basic check. Then the next thing that you should see is that which of them support the argument. Very important, right? Assumption here. It's a hidden pillar. It is supporting the argument. So there can be 1 or 2 options that are not even supporting the argument, that are not even related to the argument. Right? The next thing that you have to check is which of them are necessary for the conclusion to hold true. How do we check this? Think of it like this. If it is necessary, then that means without it the conclusion will collapse. That means if I state the opposite of it, if this is not true, then the conclusion will collapse. So negate, that is state the opposite. State the opposite of the assumption. And let's say you did it for option C, it seemed an important concern, but even when you negated it, even when you stated the opposite of it, the conclusion did not collapse. The conclusion still stood, right? The roof did not collapse. But on doing this for D, the conclusion stopped making sense. The conclusion started looking as very insensible. That means D is my assumption. D is my assumption. Just check E once for the sake of it, okay? And then D is your answer. I hope this is clear to everybody. Okay? All right. Now, here's an assumption question. So, this is a whole paragraph, right? This is your stimulus. It says the ruling parties are expected to fare better in by-elections. So, this seems to be the opinion, the conclusion of the author. The ruling parties are expected to fare better in by-elections because there will be reasons, the premises. There is little incentive for opposition parties to mobilize their voters in full strength if there is no chance of attaining power. And ruling parties tend to get adherents to vote with the promise of development schemes in the constituency. So this is the conclusion of the author, and it is based on 2 reasons, 1 and 2. Now, tell me, what is the assumption that has been made by the author of this argument? 5 options. There is a none of the above as well. Don't worry, power outage. It will be back in just a minute. Meanwhile, am I visible? Okay, no. Okay. What do you say? Assumption made by the author. To incentivize is to have an incentive for something. Okay. So they don't have the incentive to actually work for by-elections, to make those efforts for by-elections. Okay. I've got C. All right. B. Bangalore. Okay. Let's see what else. Just so few responses. What has happened? C, B. Okay. B. All right. Okay. So let's discuss. Okay. Most of you are saying C. C is the answer here. Okay. Now, it says ruling parties tend to get adherents, basically people who adhere to a particular political party. They show allegiance, they show faith in a particular political party. They'll be called as adherents. So, ruling parties tend to get adherents to vote with a promise of development schemes in the constituency. Right? So, how do they get them to vote? How do they get them to vote with a promise? They can get them to vote on the basis of a promise only when they believe this promise. Then only it will translate to a vote. Yes. So, yes, this is an assumption of the author that these adherents believe the promises of development made by the ruling party. Because if they did not believe, then they would not vote. Right? So, C is my answer here. Okay. Good afternoon, Sonali. No, Prem. It's after practicing a few questions, no? You get a hang of it. Actually, inference conclusion, it appears to be easier because you have done such questions in the past. Assumption questions you may not have done, let's say in your junior classes or in the past. That's why it appears to be tricky in the beginning. Okay. Now, coming to another question. Question 4. Which of the following is an assumption of the generals? Okay, we have discussed the generals in the question. Pakistan supported the Afghan Taliban for geopolitical reasons. The generals saw the Taliban as insurance against growing Indian influence in a US backed Islamic Republic of Afghanistan. So, what is the assumption underlying these two statements? Okay. B, all right. C, B. What else? B, okay. All right. Okay. Okay. Ayush says E. Tejas says D. Okay. Sanil Shivam E. Sage says D. Okay. Let's see. First of all, D can be very easily eliminated. Pakistan's influence has been decreasing in the US. The argument, the statement does not even discuss Pakistan's influence in the US at all. So whether it is increasing, decreasing is not related to the argument. This could be eliminated easily. Pakistan and India are sworn enemies. They are bitter enemies. They are arch rivals, as we call them. So can I say that this is an assumption that has been made by the author? No, they may not be sworn enemies. One country may not like it if the influence of other country grows in a particular region. They may not really be sworn enemies for this to happen. So this is an extreme assumption, right? It's not something that is implicit in this discussion. This discussion is about the influence of India in Pakistan and in Afghanistan. And as a result, Pakistan supporting the Taliban. That is what this argument is about. Okay, it talks about India's influence, nothing about Pakistan's influence. It talks about India's influence in Afghanistan. Nothing about Pakistan's influence in the US. So D is eliminated. And it just talks about that how the generals in Pakistan did not want this. The generals in Pakistan did not want this. Right, that is what it discusses. Pakistan's Afghan policy is a failure. Again, something that's going beyond this discussion. Between B and E, I expected you to narrow down to B and E. Now, tell me, is this an assumption? What is an assumption? It's a necessary hidden premise. It's a necessary hidden premise. Is this an assumption of the argument that India's influence was growing under US-backed Afghan government? Or is it something that is stated? Yes. Is it something that is a hidden premise or is it something that is stated? It is something that is explicitly stated. Okay, so this is not an assumption, right? I'll tell you how you had to look at this. See, the generals saw something. So this is their reason. The generals saw, what did they see? India's growing influence in US-backed Afghanistan. So as a result, what did they think? Therefore, they supported Taliban. Therefore, they supported Taliban. So they saw India's growing influence in US-backed Afghanistan and as a result, they supported Taliban. So what is their necessary belief? Their necessary belief is that supporting Taliban will actually help in counter this growing influence. Supporting Taliban will help in countering this growing influence. Otherwise, why would they counter it? Why would they? Otherwise, why would they, support Taliban? Sorry. अगर सपोर्ट करने से इन्फ्लुएंस काउंटर ही नहीं होगा तो वो नहीं सपोर्ट करेंगे. Yes, then it does not make sense to support Taliban. So think of it like this. When I negate E and say that, okay, no, supporting the Afghan Taliban will not check India's growing influence in Afghanistan, then does this decision make sense? This decision stops making sense altogether. Okay, and that is why this is something that is essential. It was an essential belief of the generals. Okay, I hope this makes sense. B is, yes, it is in the nature of an inference. B is in the nature of an inference, Manasvi. Okay, it's not something that is an assumption. All right, it's stated. Shivam, Ayush, absolutely correct. Sonali, correct. Prem, correct. Yogesh, Dhananshri, absolutely correct. All of you. Good. Hope this is clear to everybody. E is the answer here, and that's why in the very beginning I told you that some of the trap options, even in your assumption questions, they can be of this type. There's something that is true, but it is not addressing the question, right? Okay. So this was about assumptions. I hope you've understood both inferences and assumptions. Next, we'll talk about strengthening the argument and weakening the argument, right? Okay, let's begin. So, we saw that these are the parts of an argument. The premises, this is an arrow and in between the arrow I have written assumption. The premise plus the assumption lead to the conclusion. Okay, I've put it on the arrow because this is something that's hidden. It's not explicitly stated. Now, given this structure, given this direction and everything, given this formula of sorts, if I ask you, how can you strengthen this argument? How can you support this argument further? This is a skeleton, let's say, given to you. You have to support it. How can you do it? Yes. Okay, okay. So let me saying what is upstream and downstream statements and arguments. Okay, all right. So upstream, as I understand it, I think it's talking about deductive and inductive arguments, right? So downstream would be a deductive argument and upstream would be an inductive argument. In an inductive argument, the conclusion tends to broaden the premise. Okay, so for instance, if let's say, I'll give you some examples here, just a second, because this query has been raised. Whereas in deductive, it's the opposite. The premises lead to a narrow conclusion. So for instance, if I say that all um, lights, all lights are white in color. Okay, I have a light in my room. I have a light in my room. So from this, you can safely conclude, you can very clearly conclude that the light in my room is also white. Now, this is a sort of a downstream argument. Why? Why is it downstream? Because what is happening here? From something that is known about all the lights, I am concluding something about this specific light. Okay. Whereas, if let's say I gave you this argument, the light in room X is white, the light in room X of this house is white, the light in room Y of this house is white, the light in room Z of this house is white. Maybe all the lights in this room, all the lights in this house, room X of this house, room Y of this house, room Z of this house, maybe all the lights in the various rooms of this house are white. So this is what my broadening on the basis of my premises, my generalizing on the basis of my premises. So this could be an example of your upstream argument. Okay. So this is how I understand it, right? I usually call them deductive inductive arguments. Okay. Now, so for strengthening, I've got some responses. Ayush is saying by giving premises. Okay, yes, by adding premises. Very good. By supporting it with additional reasons. Good, Ayush. Then Yogesh is saying with proof. So yes, proof also would be nothing but adding more premises here. Additional adding more premises that support the conclusion. Fine. This is one way. This is one way. What is the other way? One is adding more premises. Any other way? These are hidden, right? These are hidden, but they are supporting the conclusion. Why not make them visible? These are hidden, but they are supporting the conclusion. Why not make them visible? Okay, so that is something that could be done. So these are the ways in which you can strengthen an argument. Add premises that support the existing conclusion. Additional information is allowed, of course. That is how you will add more premises. Unhide the hidden premises. These are hidden right now. No, so you unhide them, you make them visible. That is, unhide the assumptions. Explicitly state the assumptions. And a very important check. Sometimes students get very carried away while strengthening the arguments. Always stick to the given argument, to the given conclusion. Okay. Everything that you add has to support this given existing conclusion. Don't venture into other territories. Okay, don't go beyond the conclusion. right? So let's have a look at an okay. Let's come back to our original example. This was our example, right? Bhumi secured 98% marks in class 12. Therefore, she can be called intelligent. Now, one way of my strengthening it is that I explicitly stated that, securing, let's say, 95% plus marks in class 12 is indeed a sign of intelligence. Or marks are positively correlated with intelligence. This is in one way my stating the assumption explicitly. Give me some other ways, give me some additional premises through which I can support this existing conclusion. Some additional premises through which I can support this existing conclusion that she can be called intelligent. Let's see what you say. Yes, yes, in favor of, definitely. Let's see what you say here. No, Ayush, come on. You've been giving correct answers. If you approach something like this, then it is bound to remain irritating and confusing. Yes, what do you say? She's good at extracurricular activities as well. Okay. How do we relate it to? It would be better if we related it to intelligence also. Let's say a sign of holistic intelligence. If I say she's good at extracurricular activities, which is a sign of holistic, let's say intellectual development. You could say that. So the moment I bring in intellect, intelligence also comes in. Students with a high percentage are intelligent. So Yogesh, in a way, we are rephrasing our assumption. She is hardworking, and so if she is hardworking, relate it to intelligence. How do you relate it to intelligence, Ayush? If she is hardworking, if she is smart, okay, smartness. Again, my point is that whatever additional premise that you give, it has to relate with the existing conclusion. Okay, so she is a rank holder. In addition, she is a rank holder in her class. Yes, this can be related because we are talking about percentage of marks. We're talking about marks, so ranks are awarded on the basis of marks. All right. So, Sahrish, yes, this is in a way your assumption rephrased. Okay, okay. Right. So I could also say this that good, some of your responses, for instance, let's say she's good at extracurricular activities as well, which are a sign of holistic intellectual development. Then if I say she has a good IQ, which is a good indicator of a person's intelligence, right? Then that could also add. And of course, the relation between marks and intelligence, that's the assumption itself. If we state that explicitly, that will strengthen the argument like anything. Okay, so good. This is how we strengthen an argument. Let's have a look at a question. Yes, 5 options. Let's see what you say. Waiting for your responses. There's an all of the above as well. Fastest fingers first. Hmm. Okay. What else do we say? B. Okay, I've got two B's. Ashish answered the fastest, followed by Krishna. Then Ravi also says B. Okay. Let's see what else I get. There's an all of the above also. Okay. All of you are saying B, it seems. Let's check. So we had to strengthen the author's argument. What is the author's conclusion? This, that the residents of the Kashmir Valley are upbeat. They are happy and enthusiastic, right? So why are they upbeat? Because the valley has seen a substantial increase in footfalls with the revival of the tourism industry during the recent winter, despite security concerns. Okay, with its natural beauty proving a magnetic attraction for international travelers in particular, who had been affected by global travel bans. So, this entire thing is the premise, right? Whereas this is the conclusion. Now, if I have to strengthen it, I have to show that, okay, they have a reason to be upbeat. I have to give them some reasons to be upbeat. So, if I say political forces cutting across mainstream and separatist sections are calling for unhindered access for tourists in the region, they have all the more reason to be upbeat. They have got political support also then, right? So, these are answer in D. Okay, the others, A, C and D, what are they doing to the argument? Are they, okay, my question to you is, are they not affecting the argument at all? Or are they weakening the argument? Yes, option A. Security risks continue to remain preponderant in the valley. What is preponderant? Yes, they continue to remain something that is preponderant. Is it diminishing? Is it prevalent? It is something that is very dominant, predominant in a particular region. So, security risks continue to remain predominant in the valley. What will it do? Will it increase, will it give them cause to be upbeat, the residents of the Kashmir Valley? No. Okay. So this is sort of intensifying the security concerns. With the word preponderant, it is intensifying the security concerns. So it is weakening. Okay. Then, see, there was a spurt in terrorist violence in the past few weeks. Again, think of the effect on the conclusion. Will it make them upbeat or not? It will not. So again, this is weakening. And D. Shops in the valley were shuttered for 2 days following the killing of two Fedayeen militants. Again, this is weakening. Okay, so A, C, D. All right. B is the answer. Okay, perfect. So we have now understood what the other options were doing. That's why, I added this option all of the above, because sometimes the students, after reading the question stem, they get confused. They mix up strengthen and weaken. Okay, and instead of strengthen, they'll instead of an option that strengthens the argument, they'll mark one that is weakening the argument. So three were weakening here, one was strengthening. Okay. All right then. One more strengthening the argument question. Okay, read the stimulus, then tell me what's the answer. Unhindered is without any obstacle. No, upbeat means enthusiastic. It is not related to beaten. All right, waiting for your responses. Okay, I've got two already. Good, Ashish and Krishna. Okay, so basically I've got an unequivocal C, right? So let's see if C is the answer. The bill goes against the Supreme Court's landmark judgment declaring privacy as a fundamental right. Why not E though? Under the Indian Medical Council Act, the collection of biological evidence of an individual falls under a legal grey area. Yes. So the question was which of the following most strengthens the author's argument? Most, right? So even if, let's say, some of you did narrow down to C and E, even if you did narrow down to C and E, this one is saying that it goes against, we are very clear about it, that it goes against the Supreme Court's landmark significant judgment declaring privacy as a fundamental right. So if this is the case, then yes, definitely the author's argument is correct that there are serious questions about its legal validity. Okay, this is calling it in a gray area. That means we aren't sure whether it is legal or illegal. There's an again iffiness, maybe-ness to it. Okay, if I can use these terms. So that is why C is any day better than E because E casts a doubt that okay, it may not be valid, whereas C says that okay, it is highly likely that it is not valid because the Supreme Court declared privacy as a fundamental right. So definitely C is stronger that way. Right? Good. All of you are correct. All of you are correct. Yes, Ashish. Gray area doesn't seem to be that big an issue. Right. Good. So good. Everybody now is clear with the concept of strengthening an argument. Let's now weaken an argument. Okay. So given the structure, again, my question to you is how should we weaken an argument? Okay. So I think because now you've learned how to strengthen an argument, you will be very easily able to see that just like there, I was adding premises that support the conclusion. Here, I'll do the opposite. I'll add premises that weaken the conclusion, cast a doubt on the conclusion. Just like there, I was unhiding the assumptions. Basically, I was explicitly stating the assumptions. Here, I will explicitly state the opposite of the assumption. I will explicitly state the opposite of the assumptions. So these are the ways to weaken. Add premises that cast doubt on the existing conclusion. Of course, additional information is allowed. State the opposite of the assumptions and stick to the given argument. Very similar strengthening and weakening are just that the approach is the opposite. So now, if here I right away state marks are not at all correlated with intelligence. Marks are, in fact, if I say marks are negatively correlated with intelligence, let's say I say this, marks are negatively correlated with a person's intelligence. In a way, what have I done? I have attacked these assumptions, I've attacked these pillars very badly, isn't it? Marks are negatively correlated with a person's intelligence. So they can't be a sign of intelligence, of course. Right? So this is one way. Then you can add some premises. So there, for instance, one of you said that she is good at extracurricular activities, which is a sign of holistic intellectual development. Here we could show that she does not participate in extracurricular activities at all, which is a vital sign of a person's holistic intellectual development, right? Or I could say her IQ, which is a very good indicator of a person's intelligence, is pretty low. So I have cast a doubt. Yes, I've cast a doubt on the conclusion. That's what we have to do. We have to cast the shadow of doubt on it. Right. Very good, Yogesh. Yeah, very good. Yes, we could cite some study also, Ashish. Correct, correct. Okay. All right. Add a premise that will weaken, attack the conclusion, cast a doubt on the conclusion. Correct. So, here's a question. You have to most weaken the argument. Okay, there's an all of the above also. Let me see what you mark. Question 7. Yes. Weaken this argument. Let's see. This is the last concept for the day, okay? So I want your enthusiasm. And I hope after this, at least the basics will be clear to everybody. Because the students struggle a lot with the basics in this. Okay. All right. Ashish, Yogesh, Sahrish, Dhanashri, Bharti, Tejas, SG, all of you give an unequivocal A. Very good. Because what are the others doing? Yes. What are the others doing? B, C and D. What are they doing to the argument? They are strengthening the argument. Okay. They are strengthening the argument. B, C and D. A is the only one that weakens. Very good. Okay. A is the only one that weakens. Okay. Now, the last question for the day, question 8. Which of the following points to a flaw in the argument? So, there is a flaw within the argument. That means argument may, there is something that is not logical. You have to spot that, right? So, something about the structure of this house is not right. Some flaw within the structure. Spot that. Good, Ashish and Tejas. So Prem, for critical reasoning, I think this will establish the basics. Okay. If let's say you want to practice some more advanced questions, then last year also I took some critical reasoning sessions, some based on MAHCET only. So you can watch those sessions for an advanced understanding. Still, we will also have one more session on critical reasoning where we will practice relatively advanced questions. Okay. So attending these classes plus watching some of the previous lectures for this should do. Okay. For practice questions, Prem, again, you can refer to the previous lectures, the previous year's lectures. That's what I'm talking about. Then you can refer to your past year papers. They are memory based papers. So remember, that means the exact questions were not asked in the exam, but yes, questions on the lines of what is given on the internet were asked. So practice from previous year papers. And I always tell you, for grammar, vocabulary, RC passages, you can practice from various other non-CAT exams previous year papers as well. So that should be a lot of material along with, let's say, some mock series, some mock tests that you must be taking. Okay, that will be enough. Resolving the paradox, Rajan, that's an advanced question. Okay, so I'll just briefly tell you that let's discuss this first. Very good, all of you. C is the answer. Only the just a second, and not see. Basically, we are just given that they collect information and they buy it. It's not given no that they are the ones who are playing it. Maybe the parents of these children, the parents of the teenagers, they collect information, they buy it, and then the teenagers use it. It discounts that possibility, it ignores that possibility. And that is the flaw within this argument, making this conclusion to be a flawed conclusion. Okay. So, C is the answer here. Very good. Now, resolving a paradox in this question type, some contradictory situation is given to you. Okay. So, for instance, let me just take an example. Water is so essential to our life, but it is still very cheap. You can get it for, let's say, 20 rupees, even mineral water, right? So water is essential for our lives, yet it is cheap. And now I ask you, please resolve this paradox. So how will you resolve it? You will start off thinking of some reason that justifies both of these. Okay, that actually lets both of them to be true. That fine, it is essential, but yet it can be cheap. So this is how you resolve a paradox. Two contradictory situations are given to you. You search for a reason that explains both. You search for a reason that allows both of them to hold true. So the reason is that water is available in abundance. So even though it is essential, it can still be cheap, right? Because it is available in abundance. So this is how we resolve a paradox, by searching for an explanation that allows both the situations to remain true, right? Okay. Now, Prem, you're asking the same question multiple times. See, for critical reasoning practice of the basics and some advanced questions, this is enough. This and the past year lectures that I'm referring to, okay? Plus, you will practice from past year papers also. In my opinion, that should be enough, because I don't expect your entire paper to be filled with critical reasoning questions. However, if you are, let's say, extremely weak at the topic and it extremely scares you, then yes, you can practice from other sources. So there's this book called 1000 CR Questions. It's by Kaplan. Okay, it's available on the internet also if you search it. So you can practice some questions from there if you want some additional source. Right? I hope you found value in today's session, and I'll see you again tomorrow, right, at 12. And again, this month is dedicated to MAHCET. So till the time the exam happens, we will take a lot of sessions. Okay, we'll have sessions in the evening also soon at 7 p.m. So do attend those, right? And yes, this is our comprehensive CAT batch. Now it prepares you for all the entrance exams. There's a lot of material here, a lot of expert guidance available. And in case you want to stay connected on a permanent basis, then yes, you can join our Telegram channel. So this is it from my side for today. I'll see you tomorrow now at 12 p.m. Okay, bye. See you. Thank you, Yogesh. Thank you. Welcome.